tell everybody that I'm live in our Discord. Okay. Okie dokie. So hopefully people will start to join. But either way, we will get through some homework. So we've got we've got my admin dashboard here. So let's have a look to see if we've got any week 2 homeworks first, because I believe we do have a couple. Okay, so let's have a look. We've got a reference here. But what we'll do is just load up the code, and then we'll take a look at it. In fact, whilst I'm here, let me also just tell everybody on Twitter, for anybody who may be interested in watching. Oh gosh, my computer goes so slow when I'm doing all this stuff at the same time. I need to get a new computer. Right, I'm doing a Stackademic homework review session for anyone who would like to. Hey Devesh, good to see you, or good to read you, I guess. For anyone who would like to watch along, you can check it out. You can watch live at our YouTube. Okie dokie. Right, let's hopefully start. Okay. I'll be curious to know who else is watching along as well. So, I'm not checking the Discord at the moment, but if you want to leave a comment in the same way that Devesh has in the YouTube chat, then do let me know. But first off, we're going to take a look at a reference code here. Now, this is week 2. This was just a homework task to use semantic HTML. And I wanted to have a look at this one because to see if there's anything that we can pick up. So let's grab this code and we'll just put it into VS Code here. We've got Christy. Hey, Christy, good to have you with us. We're just looking at a couple of week 2 homeworks here, and the first thing I can spot is, a couple of things. In fact, the nice thing about one of these VS Code extensions I have is that it highlights anything that isn't following a best practice. And for anyone who can remember from one of our earlier lessons, we mentioned how we shouldn't really use I when using italics, but should rather use EM or M, short for emphasis. Now, the thing is, this one's a little bit of a strange one because what Arutharan is doing here is actually using, he's actually just using an icon. He's just put an icon in here and is using the I tag. And so there's probably a better way that we could potentially do that, but I think this is just being copied and pasted rather than it being, not following a best practice. But one thing I can notice here, and some of you watching along may also notice this, is that we're using div tags here, and we shouldn't be. We should at least be using section if we can, because there's no reason why these cannot be sections. So we could fix all of those, and we could do the same for this contact one here as well. So once we've done that, then at least we start to have something that is using semantic HTML. For the most part, though, the rest of it seems fine. Um, I would take a look at these though and see if there's something better that can be done here. But nevertheless, that's okay. So yeah, a couple of things that can be improved, but for the most part, it was okay. So we'll mark that as complete. Let's see if we've got any other homework from week 2. So we've got Monica's here. Let's take a look. Okay. We'll just take a look at it here instead, actually, to be fair, because for the most part, this seems okay. There is actually a couple of things I've noticed here. So, in fact, let's point them out because it is important still. Devesh, yeah, it's quite late in India. I know. I'm surprised you're awake, to be honest, because what time is it now? Midnight? Maybe later? Maybe it's 12:30. But fair play to you, Devesh. So, okay. Right, let's see. So, some of this looks okay. We've got something a little bit strange going on here, though. It's 11:30. Okay. Still late. Okay, so first thing is this looks a little bit strange to me. So first off, I've just pressed Command and S, and because I've got a VS Code extension called Prettier, it just auto formats everything. But I can see here that for some reason we've got a P tag, and then inside of it we've put a H1, which is not a good practice. You shouldn't be doing that. It looks like we've got Maria as well with us. Hi, Maria. So the first thing I do is I would take that out, and I'd close that off there. So we've just got that as our H1. And then this, we can get rid of that as well. So we have something like that. And the reason is because, a H1 is a header. You shouldn't be putting a H1 inside of a paragraph tag. It doesn't really make sense. H1s, all of the H tags really should just have text inside of them, not further elements inside of them. So there is that. And it looks like there are a couple other places where we've done this as well. So we've got a P here, and then we've got an A. I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. But again, we could probably get rid of those. It is Prettier a good extension on VS Code. Yeah, Maria, I love it. It's great. Actually, so the code on the screen looks a bit fuzzy. Do you know what, Christy? I'm glad you've pointed that out, because obviously I'm looking at it on my screen, but you're all not. So let me zoom in, if I can remember how to do that, because I don't normally need to do it. Here we go. Okay, so command and equals. Okay. Right, so that's massive now. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Do let me know if it's not. We don't need that other screen for the moment, so we'll just bring this out here. So yeah, hopefully that's a little bit better. Let me know if it's still really bad though, Christy. Aditi says hello. Yep, hello Aditi. Good to have you with us. Hafiz, we will definitely review your homework as well. Don't you worry. So as I mentioned, this is not a good practice. There's no need for this H3 to be inside of this P. So we could get rid of those, and we could pretty much do that in other places as well. Like here's another section. What it looks like to me is, Monica, it looks like you're using P tags as dividers for each section, when what you should be doing is using something like section, or if you can't find anything at all, then use div. But don't use P tags for that. P is short for paragraph, so it should just have text inside of it, not lots of additional elements that wouldn't otherwise be in there. So again, here's another example where we could get rid of those. But for the most part, in other areas, you're doing good things. So this list looks good. I wonder whether this could have been something like a footer, maybe, or an aside or something like that, but not the end of the world. And it looks like you're using M as well, which is good because that's what you should be doing. But all in all, it was a good attempt. There are definitely some things that can be improved, but I'm okay with that as long as you learn from it. That's the most important thing. So we'll mark that as complete. We've got one more homework from week 2 still. So let me take a look at that. And by the way, this is not because I've been late on doing these. It's because the submissions have arrived late. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Okay, on the surface of it, this looks good. So let's see what we've got here. So, okay, we've got the body. We've got a header tag. That's good. I like this, using the nav tag appropriately. Main as well, using that. That's good. Is there anything that could be improved here? No. This is really good. This is perfect. So all good. That one's fine. Don't need to pass any more comments on that. Okay, right. So Hafiz, let's take a look at your homework. I can't find you, Hafiz. Have you got a strange name on here? Is it something like Learning Web Dev or something? You don't seem to be appearing. Hafiz, have you actually submitted a piece of homework that I haven't marked yet? Because it looks like I've already marked all of your homework. So unless there's something that you haven't submitted yet, so yeah, Hafiz, just double check if there is something that you've not submitted yet, because from what I can see, all of your homework has already been marked by me, which means it was complete. So if there is something in particular you'd like me to take a look at, though, just paste the GitHub link into the chat, and then I'll take a look at it. But in the meantime, let's see if we can find some homework from anyone else that we've got with us right now. So, okay. Right. Okay, so let's take a look at yours, Christy. And this is from week 3. So we will have some CSS here. And we've also got an image as well. So we might have an issue with seeing the image, but if we do, that's not your fault. That's just the setup I have. But we might be able to do something for that. It depends on how many images you've got. So let's load up our live server and take a look at the website. Okay. So as we mentioned, the images won't load up, but that's nothing to do with what you've done, Christy. Let me see if I can get them in there though, because it looks like you've potentially got a few. Okay, right. Let's quickly grab this link from GitHub, and I don't know whether any of you have done this before, but you're going to see me use the command line. So let's bring this up here. And eventually it's going to, there we go. Okay, so I need to go into actually no, we can git clone. We can just clone it straight here. In fact, this is going to be faster. I don't need this folder I've created here anymore. Let's get rid of it. And let's stop the live server. And then we will just cd into this folder. So CD, if anyone can see what I'm doing and is a little bit confused, CD is short for change directory. I know we haven't gone through any of this before, so don't worry if it's blowing your mind for anyone. So okay, right. So let's load this up. Hopefully, we should have your pictures now. There we go. Okay, that looks much better. Right. So let me just read what you've said here, Christy. So since I was trying to do this without grid or flex, the top large banner has a scroll bar. I wasn't able to figure out how to fix it. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that's definitely not what you wanted. Okay, so we can definitely fix that. That's all good. So let's just first take a look at the code we've got here. So for some reason you've got two navs. Let me just get rid of that first one. So we'll comment that out. Let me just see if it changes anything here. Okay, so Hafiz, I can't, like, you need to show me the code. I can't answer it without knowing what I'm looking at. So if you can find the GitHub link and put it in the comments, and then I'll take a look. Okay, so right. In fact, let's just take a look at this. Let's take a look at this and find out what's going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is right-click on the. I'm using Chrome, by the way. I'm going to right-click and press Inspect. So for anyone who hasn't done this before, it will bring up something that is known as the Chrome Developer tool. And then this gives us an opportunity to just like look at the HTML here, and we can, and you'll see it highlights certain things. So what we're looking for is this section here with the scroll. We can see if we hover over header that it's inside of our header bit. So let's just bring that up a bit. Let's open that, and we can see here it's inside of this top banner. Okay, and we've got this. Okay, this is interesting. I see what you've done here. So I'm going to show you two ways that we can approach this. Okay, the first is to get rid of the scroll. So if we go on our div class, you can see here that on this right hand side. In fact, you know what? I bet this is not easy to see either, is it, at the moment? So let me. How do you zoom into this as well? Is it? Oh, there we go. Okay. Hopefully this is a little bit easier to see now. And okay. So if we hover over this top banner, I'm pointing at the screen. You can't see that, but we can see the code here for top banner. If you can see where my mouse is in the bottom right corner, and I can see you've got this overflow auto. Auto overflow is going to handle the scroll. So what we could do is change that overflow to hidden. Before you had it on auto, which just says, okay, do whatever you need to handle what's there. If we change it to hidden, you can see that scroll has disappeared. There's no scroll there anymore. It's gone. So that's how you can tackle that. Let me show you a better way, though, or just a different way to approach it. So, okay, so we've got this nav container here. Let me just check something. So top, okay, yeah. So what we could do is instead, this top banner, we could give it a background instead, which means that we don't need this anymore here. What I'm going to do is just copy this URL because I do need that. But what we could do is just get rid of that completely. And then what we could do is go into our CSS for the top banner. So let's find the top banner. Okay. And what we could do is just give this a background. A background URL, and then use some speech marks. And if we paste in that, we should start to have something that does the same thing. So As you can see, we've got the same thing here. We've got the overflow doesn't matter because there is no overflowing information, but we've got that there. Now, this might not look exactly as you had it before, but we can change that. So what I like to do is use Chrome developer tools to just try things out in real time and like play around. And because it gives you the autofill, it gives you, it just shows you what to do. So for example, here I could do background size. You can see it's automatically giving me some things I can try. So if I do contain, you can see it changes that top, how it looks. I could do cover, and it does that. Let's say, for example, I wanted to do cover, so I want it to be big. Then what we could also do is background position. And then we could do things like show the bottom part of the image, show the middle of it, show the top, and so on. So there's lots of different ways you could approach it. I would say this is a better way to do it rather than what you had before, which is having an image element inside of the div. It's not bad. It's just there's a way that you could do it with less HTML, which is by giving this div a background rather than placing an image inside of it, if you get what I mean. So that's that. Let's just quickly take a look back at the HTML you've got. In fact, we don't really need to. This is all good anyway. So let's just take a look at the rest of the style. Do you know what? To be fair, this is pretty good. I think you can be happy with this in terms of a kind of, a first attempt in week 3. So that's cool. And hopefully, if anything, because of week 4, when we went through kind of the layout techniques with flex and grid and things like that, hopefully you can start to implement them or already have in week 4. But yeah, so that's a good one. I'm happy with that. Let's mark that as complete. Okay. Right. So Hafiz, you have sent me something, haven't you, in Discord? Let's have a look. Okay, here we go. Right, let's open that. Okie dokie. Also as well, Hafiz, one thing I've noticed is that every week when you do your homework, you're pushing it to the same repository. In other words, you're overwriting your previous homework. What you should try to do in this case, because they're separate homeworks of separate projects, you should be creating separate repositories for them. So just bear that in mind. In other words, when you do homework 4, you're overwriting homework 3, which means nobody can look at it anymore. So just bear that in mind. So what task is this one anyway, Hafiz? Is this homework 4 that I'm looking at, or is this homework 3 or homework 2? All right, let's grab that again. Okay. Hafiz, are you still there? What homework am I looking at? Is this homework 4 or 3? In the meantime, I'll just take a look at this. So you said, okay, the nav tab is not working with the mobile version. Okay, so let's see what happens. Okay, I'm guessing that's what you're referring to. Okay, cool. So homework 3 and 4 together. So yeah, Hafiz, I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. Like as the screen gets smaller, the lines kind of just get stuck next to each other. And there's different ways to approach it. I mean, it depends on what what design you're trying to achieve. But for now, let's imagine that what you would prefer is for this to be a column instead of just being a row as it gets smaller. So let's see what we've got so far. Okay, so we've got this navigation. Okay, so this looks fine. Looks like what you've done here is good. You can be happy with the type of CSS you've written as well. So, like I said before as well, you don't need to write loads and loads of CSS to achieve something. Just a few things should do it, and that's fine. So you've got a border and a radius. That's cool. Background color, okay. Margin and padding, cool. Display flex, that's good. And space around, that's good. So what we need to do is a media query to change this at a certain place. So what we're trying to do is display, not display, sorry, flex flow. We want column. So column, if we put column on there, you can see it already sets it into like this. Now, of course, we could do things to make it look a bit nicer and whatnot, but this homework is not about the design. It's just about making sure things are functional. So the first thing we could do is this. Okay, so we need to put flex flow column in order to turn it into a column. Now, how do we make it so it only does this at a certain point? Well, let's take a look at this and figure out when is the point where it seems like it needs to be a row. So if any of you can see, you might not be able to notice this, but the nice thing about Chrome Developer Tools is as you reduce and increase the size, it tells you how many pixels in the top right-hand corner the screen is. So as we're getting down, it's still okay, but maybe when we hit somewhere such as about 760, maybe that's the point where we should turn it into a column. 760, that space is quite good because that's typically what you would do when you want to target tablets. So, okay, so we want to target this. So we're looking for this navigation class. Okay, so let's have a look at the CSS. Okay, that's good. So you're using these media screens. So that's the media query. That's what we need to do. What are we looking for? Is navigation, wasn't it? Okay. So let me just. So I'm guessing it doesn't look like you've got any other places where you're using navigation, which means we haven't created a media query for it. So let's do one now. So media. Now, I always forget the syntax for doing media queries. Okay, so media screen and okay, so max. Okay, so if it's larger, okay, yeah, so max width 769 px. You'll see there as well. I've not even targeted the screen. I'm just saying 769. Anything below that, I want you to do this. Anything above that, you don't need to do this. Okay, so this is what we wanted, flex flow column. But of course, we need to attach it to something. And we're trying to attach it to the navigation. So let's just cut this for the moment. Inside our media query, we can put navigation. And then just like we do normally, we use our curly braces and do that. So that now says, okay, whenever the screen is smaller than 769 pixels, I want you to lay out our navigation as a column. So let's refresh our page and see what happens. Okay, so it's a row at the moment. As we get smaller, as we continue to get smaller, and we get closer to 760 pixels or 769, it automatically turns into that. You can see there, it does that on my screen. Yeah. So just like that, you've attached a media query to your navigation. Now, of course, there are plenty of other things you can do to make it look nicer and whatnot. But as I said, we're not going to get into that. So hopefully that made sense to you, Hafiz, and for anybody else watching. how you can just write something as simple as this media query here, and it will turn this into a column. Because before, of course, this navigation is flex, flow, row. Although you haven't written that, the default is for it to be a row. That's what happens as soon as you put flex, display flex, it turns it into a row. But then, so because it's already a row by default, we don't have to put it on there. Some people do, though, just to make it a bit more explicit. So either or is fine. But yeah, then we do that. So hopefully that makes sense. We'll move on to some more homework just because I'm mindful of everybody's time. So let me just refresh this page. Okay, ignore the fact that my display picture isn't loading there. That's just because. So, okay. Right, let's take a look at AXA's homework. By the way, if anybody in the chat really wants me to look at their homework, then tell me, just so I know you're there and I can prioritize looking at yours. So, okay, let's grab AXA's homework. What have I done? Here we go. Okay, cool. So even as well, Hafiz, what I was saying before about different repositories, you can do it like this as well, whereby if you wanted, you could just have one repository but separate folders for each homework. Okay, this won't be any different from the other day. So have I not just marked your homework already? I'm confused. In that case, let's just mark it then. So no worries. Okay, let's take a look at, well, I'll just start from the top. Okay, no, that's fine. Understood, Axe. That's all good. If we've already looked at it, then that's fine. Unless there is something you want me to take a look at. If there is, then just say so, and I will review it. For anyone who is unaware of what it is that I'm doing in the terminal, I'm writing git clone and then the link to the GitHub, and that will clone all of your code onto my computer locally, and then I can take a look at it. So where have I done that to? That's strange. Saying it's not available. Of course it's not, because I'm not cloning the right thing. Here we go. That's what I need, that link there. Let's take a legendary sip of water. Okay. Oh, okay. I already have a folder called Stackademic on the computer from one of the other projects, so it wouldn't let me clone it because something already exists. So let's delete that and clone again, and then, okay, right, we've got something here. Right, okay. I'm trying to make sense of Axe's joke. Where have I done that to? Should be said in a grandpa voice for maximum effect. I feel like my voice is turning into a grandpa voice anyway, because I'm losing my voice just from talking so much. Constantly in meetings with people about Stackademic at the moment. I've got some really interesting things as well, like some really exciting people coming on board to teach you various things. So some really cool things in the pipeline. Okay, right. So firstly, it doesn't look like this is loading anything. That's strange. Oh, it's because the file's empty. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's just paste that into there instead and see what happens now. Okay, here we go. So, Dental World. First off the bat, this looks cool. Um, so this is pretty well designed. Um, I'm guessing, Dan, that means you have either some form of background in design or potentially just have a knack for it. Let me check your profile, see if you wrote anything of interest. No, nothing in particular that alludes to your design chops. So, okay, never mind. Let's carry on. So this looks good to me. Let's see what happens if we try to go responsive. Ah, nice. Okay. So you're using Flex as well already. And this was homework that was given before we even touched on Flex and Grid and things like that. So this looks cool. Let me just see these images. Some of the images aren't bad. They look like they're a little bit squashed at times, though, and that will be because of the height on them. The height is squashing them or stretching them. You can see. I mean, we can see it. It's a little bit more prominent in this image here. If we take the height off it, it goes to its normal size. I'm guessing you've put a height on it to have some consistency when they are side by side. For example, so that you've got that. If we take it off, then you have that. And that can look a little bit strange. But there are ways we can tackle that. So we could put something like height on there. I think it's object. Is it object fit? Yeah, so we could do something like that. Object fit cover. Up to object fit works in the same way or similar way to what we were looking at with Christie's homework earlier when we looked at background size and we put cover. You can do the same thing with just images and doing object fit. So now that's not an issue. We can put that on 40%, but the images don't get stretched and squashed and things like that. So that is what I would suggest. Put object fit cover on images when you are trying to take control of the height of the image as well. As we said before, height is a strange property to use or strange property value to use. No, sorry, strange property to use because it causes some just weird looking effects to happen. But looking at this homework in general, it looks pretty good. Is there anything weird about the CSS I can notice? Uh, no, I mean this is pretty good. So I mean the only thing like I said, the only thing I pointed out was the height, but that's just being whatever the word is when you're being picky. I guess the word is picky. Right, so let's mark that as complete. Okay, let's take a look at. In fact, let's take a look at homework 3 for Predator, and then we will take a look at week 4 further down the line. So, is anybody because I can't see who's in the chat, by the way, is there anybody in the chat who would like me to look at their homework? If not, I'll just continue to pick random ones. Okay. Right, so this is homework week 3. So this would have been done before we introduced flex and grid and things like that. Okay, so what happens when we make this a bit smaller? Okay, so I mean, the first thing that kind of stands out to me is the fact that everything's just on the left-hand side. I don't know whether that's deliberate or not, but if it wasn't, we could do something to put it in the in the center. So we could go tile container, margin, auto, text align center. In this case, we don't even need the other thing. So you could do something like that, and then at least that will bring them into the center. So let's. Doesn't even look like, from what I can see, is there even is tile container even a class that's being used? Okay. So it is. So is this something with the? Okay. So what's happened here is it looks like you've not hooked up the CSS file to the HTML. So was the padding set to 0? It might be, but it shouldn't make a difference to that. What the issue is here is we've not hooked up the CSS file because we've put homepage style.css here, but you see the file's just called style.css. It's not called homepage style.css. So I'm guessing that was probably because you're working on a different file at the time. So here we go. Right. Now we've got a website that looks completely different. Okay. Right. So we've got a few things here that can be fixed. I mean, obviously this is not inside the image. I'm guessing that's maybe because it's just a HTML issue rather than something else. So let's take a look. Let's look for that. So drinks. Right, what's different about this here? Okay, so we've got a typo here, which is causing the issue. You can see here, tile component is spelled incorrect. So let's fix that. Let's see if that fixes our issue. There we go. Okay, so that's in there now at least. Easy mistake to make, typos. One thing I'm noticing is that we've got this horizontal scroll here, which, as we said, we do not want ever unless we're deliberately trying to create something that has that. So let's find out what's causing that by opening our inspector, and then we'll start to hover over this space and just figure out what's going on. So we'll click this button here, and then as we hover over it, okay, so it's not any content, but you can see here at the very top we've got this button that's just kind of just hanging somewhere for some reason. So let's figure out what's caused that. Okay, so got a button there, we've got another button there. Okay, so okay, so for some reason we've put a flex on, but it's just there. Seems very strange. So let's take all of that off first. Even still with that off, there's something else that's causing that problem. Okay, so is it this? Let's just put width 100%. Okay, so it's still not that. So something is causing this information to just flow over. You can see it's not these because they're fine. So is it something further down the page? Right, doesn't seem to be. Let's put a width of 100% on here first and just see if that does anything. What about overflow then? Overflow hidden. Okay, so we can see here when we do that, it's disappearing. So there's something there, but where? Where, oh, where? I'm really curious to know what it is now. I feel like we have to find it. Um, if anybody can see something that I'm missing, then please do let me know. But there's just clearly something here, and it's a case of we have to kind of go through every element to find out what it is. Okay, let's do some process of elimination. Let's start to delete elements and we'll find out. So let's delete this quick search. Okay. So it's the quick search. Now, the nice thing is we can just press Command and Z or Control and Z if you're using Windows, and it will bring it back. So we know it's this quick search container. This is causing the problem. Okay, so it's not the container. It must be something inside it. Okay. What is causing the problem? Width 28%. Okay. This is interesting. What is causing this? All right, let's delete that. Okay, so I think we're getting closer. So it's something inside the quick search, and it seems to be this subheader container. Okay, so let's bring it off the screen a bit more. Okay, we found the culprit. It's not this, it's this. For some reason, this has been given a left of 5%. And for anybody who can remember, hopefully Axe can remember this because we spoke about this the other day. P tags are block level elements, which means they take up 100% of the space. That their default is 100%. If you then do left 5%, you're adding 5% onto the left. In other words, it becomes 5% and then 100%, which causes some overflow. So the first thing we could do is either just get rid of that, and then that gets rid of the overflow. If you really want to keep that, I don't know why you'd want to. To be fair, there's no need for it. If you really want to, if you want to push something from the left, if you want to push it to the right, then use padding. Which is maybe that was what you were talking about earlier, Axe, when you're saying was the padding set to 0. We could do something like, I mean, here now, if you want, you could put 5% padding, or maybe not on the whole thing, but just padding left. And then it pushes it out to the right, but we don't have this overflow. So that took us a long time to figure out, and that's just what happens sometimes when random bugs appear and you've got to try and do a process of elimination to figure it out. But it feels good when you do figure it out, so that's a nice thing at least. So I would say there are a few things that we could fix here in general, but for the most part, we've found some of the culprits, such as typos and kind of overflow and things like that. So let's move on. In fact, one thing I will say as well, whilst we've got this homework here, is to me, this homework, if I'm honest, it looks like homework that's been submitted without watching any of the lessons. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the stuff in here is different to what we would have taught. So, for example, we're using IDs when we shouldn't. We're using lots of divs, or also known as div soup, which is a soup full of divs. These should be section or heading or main or any of the semantic HTMLs. For some reason, there's this as well. I know we only covered this in the last lesson, but for anybody who is observing this, we've got various different types of CSS being written in terms of methodologies and even just casing. We've got this here where we've used what is known as kebab casing, which is when you split every word with a hyphen. And then we've got this, which is what's it called again? Camel casing, where the first word is lowercase and then every subsequent word capitalizes the first letter. So lots of things here that signify to me a piece of homework that's been submitted without actually watching any of the lessons. If I'm wrong, please do let me know. I don't want that to sound offensive. It's just how it looks like to me. Okay. But we'll mark it as complete nevertheless because it's still a good attempt. Right. Okay. Right, we'll do one more homework and then we'll wrap it up there. Axe, that's not camel case, that's Pascal case. If you capitalize the first letter of every word, that's Pascal case. So let me just show you inside here. So camel case, Pascal case, kebab case, snake case. So Papatuk asks, are divs okay inside the semantic tags? I've used them to get portions of grid to work. Yeah, Gary, that's perfectly fine. That's okay to do. That's quite a normal thing to do as well. So no problem. And the thing is, using divs is fine when there isn't something else that you could use. So yeah, no problem using divs inside of semantic elements when you need to. Okay, so let's take a look at Kelechi's homework. In fact, now I'll take a look at Raji's because Raji is quite vocal with me in a good way. I mean, he asks questions and things like that. So I think there's a good chance he will watch this. Okay, right. So I think next week I will do some sort of one-off session, but it won't be like a lesson. It'll just be maybe where we do something like, get more used to using Git and GitHub and things like that. Maybe just answer some questions that you may have. Okay, so first things first, this is quite an interesting looking site. I like the color scheme and things like that. Let's take a look at the rest of the site. Cool. Okay. So this is a really good start. This was homework 4, wasn't it? Let's see what happens as we get smaller. Okay. Really good. So good use of Flex here as well. I'm guessing it's Flex and not grids that you've used, but we will take a look. So let's take a look at our sections. Okay, yeah, so we're using Flex here, and we're just using it up to 779, which means that as we go below it, we have our default class. So this is really good. I'm really happy with this because you've taken that mobile first approach that we spoke about, which is design your code for mobile and then make your media queries target other devices such as a desktop or a tablet and things like that. So really good. I'm glad to see you've done that. And then looking at the HTML you've written as well, this looks pretty good. So if we take a look at it in VS Code, we're using semantic tags, making good use of them. So we've got a header, we've got a nav, we've got sections, and then inside of it we've got divs, which, as I said, is fine. So we're doing pretty good here. Yep, we've got a footer at the bottom as well. So yeah, we're using list elements inside of URL, which is what you're meant to do. Put the list elements inside of ordered list or unordered list. Don't just leave them on their own. So in other words, don't do this. You have to make sure you've got them inside of something. So that's all good. And then, yeah, this is pretty good. I like this. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so we've got a couple of different things here. If I were to spend any time on design, I mean, I won't spend much, but the only thing I would maybe suggest is making the text either a bit smaller here in these cases, or yeah, because by the looks of it, for the oh wow, this is some really interesting font sizes you've written here as well, using clamp. I don't think I've even used clamp before. I couldn't even really tell you what it means. So that's like some super advanced stuff. This shows to me that you've been reading, you've been looking up stuff. So that's cool. Yeah, the only thing I would suggest is maybe make this text a bit smaller, and don't be afraid to put a bit more padding inside of these. So you could do something like 5%, 2%. And then this. I mean, this is not complete, but all I would say is just don't be afraid of things like white space. White space is good. So, you know, it helps to create focus on certain things. So maybe something like that would help to make it a bit better. But all in all, this is a really good piece of homework. So you could be happy with that. You could be really happy with that. Okay, look, we'll wrap it up there because we're closing in on about an hour. But I hope that's been useful. And there's still some more homework, so maybe I'll just do another one of these tomorrow to get it done, or I'll just mark them by myself. We'll figure something out. But either way, thank you for everyone for attending, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.